Welcome. Welcome to the third episode of Geek News Now Live, which I'm probably not even going to be calling episodes because I just plan on doing it all the time whenever I can because it's enjoyable. I like talking about geek stuff, and it turns out a lot of other people like it too. Today, we are talking spoiler alert, okay? I want to put that out now. I'll mention it again before we really get into it. But spoilers, we're talking spoilers. We're talking everything Wonder Woman 1984. We're talking about the things we liked. We're talking about the things we didn't like. We're talking about it all. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, now's the time to leave. Get out. Go watch it and then come back and listen to us talk about it because it'll be available. This will be available. Of course, on GNN, which Geek News Now, you're obviously here and watching it right now. So make sure you've liked and subscribed because we've got tons of great stuff coming out all the time, not just live videos, but videos that people put together over time, reporting on stuff, talking about stuff. I make music videos about Star Wars and things like that. It's a lot of fun. Make sure you've liked and subscribed. Speaking of liking and subscribing, I'm joined by two wonderful guests today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and they will tell you where you can find more of their own wonderful things. So, Steven, why don't you take us away?
Thank you so much, Chris. Yes, I'm coming from Thunderpop, and on most social media platforms, we're at Thunderpop TV. You can find us on Instagram at Thunderpop TV, Twitter, the same place. We're also on Facebook at the same place, but we push a lot of our content, believe it or not, to Instagram. We're also on YouTube, by the way, but we push a lot of our content and push a lot of people over to their Instagram, and I'm on TikTok as well. So check it out. We got a podcast at thunderpop.buzz.
Okay, I have the at least your YouTube channel, both of your YouTube channels in the description below. I'm sure you'll be able to find more if you need to find more from there, as well as what he obviously just said. William, take it away.
Sir. All right, my name is William D. Morgan. I am the host of the Geek Gauntlet podcast, part of GNN as well as Pinfall Productions. You can find the Geek Gauntlet right on my William Morgan media page. We also broadcast live on Facebook under the Geek Gauntlet and about to start on Twitter starting this week under the Geek Gauntlet as well. You can also follow us on Instagram under Geek Gauntlet. And I am happy to be here tonight, guys.
All right. I'm happy to be here as well. It's been a crazy,
Yep.
and it is New Year's Eve, so I appreciate you both being able to be here. Not that obviously there's a lot of places that we're allowed to go right now to celebrate in big groups.
Exactly.
Highlighting this kind of crazy year. And actually, I had this, I want to see if I can show it. Oh, how do I? Oh, there it is. I was like, how do I share a screen? Oh, right there. So I don't know if you've seen this meme. It's definitely on Geek News Now. I've reposted it and different things. But if you've seen Ant-Man, you know how, I forget this guy's name, but he just recaps things. And there's a scene where they're in a van. It's just a series of terrible things. This is him going through a bunch of stuff from 2020. And at the end, he goes, but Mando was great. Season 2 of Mando was great. So there's that.
There you go.
So you take what you can get. But man, I got to tell you, it's been a rough one. That means, though, that things should be looking up soon. Here's hoping. I sure am. Now, let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Wonder Woman 1984. Last spoiler alert, we're talking about it. Wonder Woman 1984. That's your last one.
Last chance.
Yeah. So, what did you think? Now, I know from talking to the both of you before about this movie, William, you enjoyed it.
Yes.
Steven, not so much. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to have both of you on so we could hear both sides. So William, I'm going to let you go first. Why don't you just just tell me why you enjoyed the movie. Just tell me what you thought about it.
First of all, I gotta say a caveat. I'm already coming here being a huge Gal Gadot fan. That's the first thing. So I gotta preface that. But the movie itself, I thought the movie was pretty good. You got a lot of things out of it. You got to see Wonder Woman fly. or learn how to fly rather. You got to see Gal Gadot put a little bit more acting into the role, particularly when Steve Trevor was about to die. I think a lot of dislike from the movie, and I said this before, twofold. Not enough action. People might say it's not enough action. People may also say, why Steve Trevor? This is supposed to be about Wonder Woman. Why is Steve Trevor in this movie? I thought having Trevor in there gave her a base to work off of for the majority of the movie. Now, you could say that Steve Trevor was the star of the movie, but no, I don't think so. I think it's Gal Gadot. She did a very good job in the role. It was I like the way the movie was written. It was kind of written 1984-ish. And I think that might be another disconnect that fans may have with it, with the way it was written. Steve Trevor flying that plane out of the Smithsonian fully fueled. I get that part. But hey, that's stuff that happened around that time period. The way movies were written. I thought Linda Carter at the end was fantastic. My only complaint, like I said again, was Steve Trevor. I would have liked to see 84 be more about her growth, kind of like Supergirl and Monel. I didn't like Monel because I don't believe in having maybe a side romance, but not be the basis of a whole series. Steve Trevor was like the basis of this movie, and that shouldn't have been. But overall, I like the stunt work that was involved in it, and I love Linda Carter at the end. I think it was a good movie.
Tell us about that. For anyone that might not know that, even if you watched it, you might have missed that. So tell us about Linda Carter.
At the very, very end, it was at the end credit. You saw someone who you could have said it was Gal Gadot save a baby. And after the baby was saved, the mother wanted to walk up to the so-called hero. And she turned around. It wasn't Gal Gadot. It was Linda Carter. And for somebody who was on the almost 70, hey, she looks good. Props to Linda Carter. But I like the movie. I understand some people wouldn't, because the way movies are being written now are geared toward more action instead of storyline. But outside of the Steve Trevor stuff, I like the movie.
Okay, so that's William's opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Absolutely.
And I agree. I'm just going to throw it out there with like some of the things you were saying. Like there were definitely parts of this movie I liked. To me, it felt like a little bloated, a little like they threw everything that they thought of into it and didn't cut enough out. Like this movie shouldn't have been 2.5 hours long. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff you were saying, like as a big Gal Gadot fan, I'm a fan of her as well. It was nice. It's good to see her on screen again. It's good, like that kind of thing. Yeah, it's nice. It's good to see her smiling. She was having such much very good time, I think, in a lot of this movie. And even if, with everything else that's going on, even if there are complaints I have about it, there are things still, there's positives to take away. Like I've seen reviews of this movie that are like, this is a dumpster fire. And I say to that, no, it's not. But then again, that's my opinion. Let's talk about Steven.
Yes.
Thunder Pop. Let's get tell us
what
you thought of them. Break down what you thought of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, one great season of Mandalorian, which is what we got this year, makes up for the missing 5 good movies that we didn't get. So it did its job. Okay, so getting into Wonder Woman 84. Yeah, this was not a terrible movie. Terrible movie would be the Green Lantern.
Oh God, yes.
One of the Fantastic Four movies. Even it's not even as bad as the last the last 90s from the 90s Spider-Man, the third one. That was still a worse offering than Wonder Woman 84. And Chris mentioned it's better than Captain Marvel. I agree with it's better than Captain Marvel. Alita Battle Angel is better than Captain Marvel. Came out around the same time. Much better superhero movie. Than Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel got a lot more of attention because it's an MCU movie. But here's my thing. I was disappointed, though. I think it was missed opportunities with this film. I compare it a lot to a weaker Star Wars movie. that had a lot of missed opportunities, like a couple of the movies from the sequel trilogy. The bigger frustration with a fair to bad Star Wars movie is usually the missed opportunities. That's the bigger tragedy. Same thing with this movie. So we had mentioned, we were talking about when Chris came on my show, I'd said, one of the things with Wonder Woman, I look at it as being one of the top 4 or 5 superheroes of all time.
She
You've
is.
got Batman, the cornerstone, the mainstream superheroes,
The
the,
Trinity.
the ones that kids wear from all ages on up on their t-shirts. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and Wonder Woman. Traditionally, going back to several decades, that's
Yeah.
traditionally your 4 cornerstone superheroes. Obviously, there's new things that come along over the years that could take.
Before like Marvel, you're saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I'm
those
going
were
back
yeah.
over a span of several decades, the history, those are 4 of like if you were going to do a Mount Rushmore all-time superheroes, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman makes that Mount Rushmore. And then today, obviously it's changed because of the Marvel universe. So, which has done a lot to expand superhero genre in general, and in a good way. So here's the thing. It's the first live action Wonder Woman movie in 2017 since Linda Carter's, which in itself is a tragedy that it took that long to get it. And we had, there was the pilot, there was the NBC series that they tried to, that didn't get picked up. That was the first effort to try to do it. But then if you don't count that, which didn't make it to television, it made it to some YouTube channels, but it didn't make it to television. If you don't count that, you're going multiple decades. Meanwhile, you've had Superman in various different forms.
Mm-hmm.
You've had Batman in many, many different forms.
Yep.
Spider-Man in many, many different forms. Wonder Woman is like tumbleweeds rolling across the field. And let's be honest, a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is the one of those 4 cornerstone superheroes that was a female superhero. And that's probably a sexist reason that it didn't get sooner attention in the form of a reboot, as Batman did, and but it built up even more of a desire for it, a need for it. And I would say in 2017, they did what they absolutely had to do, and that was turn out a satisfying, pretty good Wonder Woman movie in 2017. Not perfect, but a pretty damn good Wonder Woman movie in 2017. You can nitpick at a few things, but it was a pretty good offering. And by DC standards, by the current DC universe, probably, if not the first, the second best movie.
Yep.
You could argue it's 1 or 2. And then what you put at 1, you could argue whether it's maybe Man of Steel. For me, I would say probably Man of Steel. And the only reason Man of Steel probably doesn't seem like it should be number 1 is because we've done Superman so many times. So it's like it kind of becomes redundant. But Man of Steel, probably Wonder Woman right after that. And I would actually, some days I like Wonder Woman better than Man of Steel. So I put Wonder Woman as my first.
Bring it in
17
to this movie.
So here's my issue. It's a perfect
Not
premise.
that you're wrong.
Yeah, it's a perfect premise. Wonder Woman in 1984 is a great idea for a sequel. It's perfect. You don't have to get too fancy or too cute. The kids are going to be excited. The adults are going to be excited. The big kids and the young kids are going to be excited if you just play it straightforward for the second movie. If you want to get philosophical and more complex, I think you do that on the 4th movie, maybe the 3rd movie, but you just play a straightforward. You have good 80s music in there, really good action, and just sound, solid plot, and some continuity to the DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because, by the way, I never saw her. I didn't know she could fly in the 2000s appearances in Justice League and Man of Steel. I mean, in Justice League and Batman versus Superman. She's flying in the 80s. Why wasn't she flying in the 2000s? And that wasn't even a few seconds of flying where they could kind of debate, oh, was she flying or was she not flying? Was she levitating? No, she was flying. And it went on for about 30 minutes, by the way. So you can't, at this point, you can't even
That's what they could have cut. That's what they could have cut.
It was a
short.
Yeah. And the sense of urgency for me was taken away by the time that it took her to get to the chaos, the culmination of chaos at the end towards the end of the movie. Took her forever because of her casual round trip she was taking to get there. And then she stops at her apartment to get the gold suit, which is great. I love that she shows up in the gold suit. But the fact that she had to fly forever and then stop her apartment takes away a lot of that sense of urgency. And Marvel, by the way, that's one of the things Marvel does brilliantly is the sense of urgency that they bring, and they bring it over and over again. So they prove that you can do it almost every movie to a certain degree. That to me, the sense of urgency goes out the door. And at the very minimum, I need to feel some sense of urgency. I don't need I don't need action in every other scene. I don't need it to be, that high octane, but I do need a sense of urgency when the world is ending. The world was ending, by the way. Everything was coming down.
A lot of the I've seen two different people. One of them I know, and just another one I just happened to see while scrolling, say they fell asleep while they were first watching this movie. They're like, I don't know, I need to watch it again because I fell asleep. And I'm like, that shouldn't happen. And I get that that's just two random people and da-da, but that was a big complaint. It's one of my complaints is that while there's a lot of stuff in this movie I like, I'm not sure that all of it should have been in there, because what it does is slow down the overall movie. And with the thing is, you want to make it tight. This should be a cog in the wheel of your DC universe, a big cog because it's Wonder Woman, an important cog because it's her second movie. By the end, everything was just, it's like, whatever. It for so long of a movie that, like, for what it was too long. For that long, and then the payoff is, and then nothing happened. Like, none of it. It's like, thank goodness, because the world would have ended otherwise, but like the overall effect seems to me a little weird. And it's Gal Gadot.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things
I agree with that.
If I could just interject one thing, I know they wanted to do something different, and with a saturated superhero live action market, with the exception of this year because everything was delayed except for a few things, but most years it's a saturated superhero market. That's not a bad thing.
No,
I'm all for it. That keeps us in business, all of us.
Yep.
But the thing is that they want to do something different. Having a superhero movie, the iconic Wonder Woman in the 80s, to me is different enough. If you score that right, that to me is unique and iconic enough to take that as your aesthetic. And by the way, the soundtrack, they got the soundtrack so wrong, because it would have been so easy. In 1984, I checked the years of songs that were out in 1984, the albums that came out that year. You had Prince. The year before, you had Michael Jackson. Not to say you would use those to score the film, but you would, and you should have used Scandal, Warrior in one of the fight scenes. It would have taken a movie that's a 5 to a 7. Right.
Maybe the last fight scene, you could have thrown that in there.
It would have been so cool. That song was Wonder Woman. That song was written for Wonder Woman. It came out in 1984.
And think about where you can ever use songs like that. Like, they make sense in certain movies. Like, remember if you have music from that era playing, it makes sense. One of the reasons Guardians of the Galaxy, like, their soundtrack was like hugely popular, is because they found a way to make that era of music work for the film that they were shooting. And that one's different because that's like obviously not taking place during that time, but it's a personal connection the character has. But then they use those songs on these futuristic settings in a way that you couldn't just normally do today without having a reason, because then people would just be like, why are they using all this old music? It wouldn't be great. They'd just be concerned. But because there's that personal connection, and because of that, it brings it all together. And because this movie's actually taking place in the 80s, I agree. You should have had more like iconic songs, like Poison or some like 80s. When you think of the 80s, like literally that smack you in the face, obvious, more than they did. Now, they did have, even in the trailer, even in the movie, 80s style songs, like, oh, this sounds like what I would expect, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. You're also DC. You can afford to do better than just a generic made up 80s techno beat or whatever. You can actually get
Stranger Things stuff. Can do it. They can do it. Stranger Things on Netflix can do it.
Yeah.
A motion picture about Wonder Woman can do it.
Especially one that's coming out basically at this point in order to try and get people to join HBO Max.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
Yeah.
I just think I looked, and maybe it was just me. Maybe I looked a little too hard at Gal's performance. I was in that era of Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, and Gal's a dead ringer for that.
Oh, yeah.
She's a
For the
dead
part.
ringer for that. She got the part. And I don't know if anybody noticed it. If you go back and look at Linda Carter back then, the way she dressed, Gal got that completely down pat. She looked just like her.
Yeah.
And that's something else that I appreciated about that movie as well. I thought her overall performance was very, very good. Now, again,
Yeah.
there's some issues with it, of course, but like I told you before, Chris, no movie is perfect.
That's true. And of the complaints that I've seen, Gal Gadot's performance, for the most part, has not been, no one's like, yeah, exactly. They're like, we wanted to see her again. Obviously, we like the first. We like what she's doing with. We like her. I mean, I do in the Justice League and stuff like that. Like the positive things I take out of it is watching her as Wonder Woman. Like I enjoy that. I think what a lot of people were thinking was that this movie would elevate her to a new level, and a lot of the movie is spent doing random stuff for apparently no reason. And that was my problem with it, is that she should know the opening scene, which I liked the Olympics, and I liked that she was about to win by cheating, and then they stop her, and that's a big lesson and it's important. But here's the thing, she learned that lesson there.
Yep.
And she knows it when everything's happening. So I guess this brings me into the point. I want to hear your thoughts on it. How Steve Trevor ended up in this movie. Shouldn't she have known this? If he's possessing the body of another dude, whether or not you see him, however you see him, isn't it kind of messed up? Don't you understand that he's taken over the life of an actual person? Shouldn't she, from the beginning, instead of sleeping with him, shouldn't she have been like, we need to fix this? That to me, I was like, what are you doing?
Well,
William, tell me.
Well, to me, that's part of what, and this is another part I liked about this movie. Part of what makes her so quote unquote human is the fact that she did make that wish and she did want her boyfriend back. Again, I do criticize the fact that he was even in the movie, because I feel romantic interest should not be in something like this. It should have been strictly Wonder Woman and to come and save the day. But if you had to have done it, it makes her look human, and that's the one thing that might have connected to a few people, particularly a few ladies out there who look up to her as a character. Female empowerment is still a huge thing going on right now in the world of entertainment, and I think this fits the bill right here. I get it, that guy died for a brief time, but I understand the point. And when he said what he said in the movie to her, and she picked up on that, she automatically knew.
Steven, what did you think about how that all worked? Because to me, again, that was just the thing that they glossed over very quickly. They said he still looks like this other guy, but she only sees him as Steve, and I'm like, but everyone else sees him as
It could have been the wish. It could have been a wishing stone also that caused that to happen.
Like where they didn't care.
Well, yeah, but here's
much.
But it's not even because no one else would recognize. Like, let's just say, I mean, this guy came off as, they showed his apartment, it's like, oh, he's just a single guy living in an apartment, aka what, worthless? Aka it's fine if someone else takes over his life, takes him away from his family, his wants and desires. Let's forget about this random guy because all I see is the guy that I know is dead. Come on, Wonder Woman.
Man,
how old are you? I expect better from you.
Yeah,
900 years old, isn't she?
Come on. But maybe she also at the same time, she's like, she's so overcome. I will say I did like that. What you said about is that it humanizes her. She made a mistake. She's doing something that a perfect person wouldn't do. And that's because she has these feelings. She's overcome by emotion. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Steven, what did you think about Steve Trevor and like how they did that?
You know, I think first of all, I like the idea of Stephen Trevor getting an encore and coming back one more time for another movie. But I think it was too long of a gap from the first movie timeline wise for it to make sense for me, right? Like in the 80s. and for her to still be longing for him and still be like mourning the loss of him in 1980, especially someone with her that's a goddess, basically. I would have done a 1950s Wonder Woman first and that's a problem. I think DC again is showing that they're too anxious. They're not taking their time, and that was the problem they made before. I would have made this in the 1950s, brought Stephen Trevor back in the 50s, and I know that would have been a different movie, but for me, by the time you get to the 80s, I understand why they wanted to do it in the 80s. If you do it in the 80s, then it's a different story too. It's the same thing. If you bring Stephen Trevor back in this, it's not this story, it's a different story. Now, as far as the guy and them, I had a problem with them taking over the guy's body. I thought it was almost as villainous as what Cheetah was doing. And maybe you could argue even more so because they didn't care about this guy's life. Now, if you want to make it the stone that's making them not care, then I think you need to establish that a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
In the movie, you're already using 2.5 hours. Take out some of the flying scene and interject something in there to show us that their judgment has been blurred or kind of distorted. Otherwise, come up with something where you don't even know that you took over another guy's body until later in the movie, and you discover it, and then that could be kind of something that could push the story further in and change their perspective. And it would be kind of an interesting flip.
Right.
So
so you feel that everything should have been more, how can I say this? Everything should have been more explained. Everything should have been more drawn out than what it was.
For a Wonder Woman
fluff. Yeah. Take out the fluff to explain the storyline. I got you.
For a Wonder Woman movie, for a Wonder Woman movie where you've got 10-year-old girls, 13-year-old boys that idolize Wonder Woman, they dress up as her for Halloween. I mean, she's one of the more popular characters with young girls. I would bet, and
old girls, all girls of all ages, and men. And everyone, some men like to get tied up. She's a very popular character, like we established. She's definitely. And so people have certain expectations. If you see a Batman movie and you don't feel it, you're going to be pissed off. I feel that's part of the reason I feel like this movie is getting the hate that it's getting. And I do see people out there hating it when at the same time, it's like, I don't hate it. I'm just like, there are problems. Okay. Like we're pointing out and we're figuring out, like we're talking about it. It's no movie is perfect. But again, this one, I would say it has something to do partially with the pandemic, partially with things been pushed back, partially with they're releasing it on a streaming service. So maybe they didn't cut it like they would something that's going to a theater. Maybe they left a little bit extra in there because they're like, people are going to be watching it at home. Well, I definitely think in my personal opinion that had something to play in this movie. And also that back when it was supposed to come out in June, there were reshoots before then because the original test screenings didn't do as well as they had hoped. And I'm going to talk about the next thing I want to talk about after we talk about this Bond thing, because we were just talking about that. Her being so in love with Steve still. The Geek and I podcast commented, how long has she had to get over and move on? It's not like Steve Rogers, who I was going to bring up, a great comparison to Steve's Out of Time. Yeah. Steve Rogers from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who was frozen, and he comes out of it. So, like, for him, no time has passed is the thing.
Right. Wonder Woman's a little bit different in this case because you're dealing with the immortal goddess. So her case is a little bit different.
And yes, and also that was her first love, and she grew up on a island of women. So you're right. There are different things at play. It's not a perfect comparison, but as far as having time to get over things, but again, you're right. Think about it from her point of view. She's immortal. Maybe it's not as much time as like for you and me, but even then, and so that's something to consider. But, and maybe I don't know if they made the whole point of her learning that lesson about the shortcuts at the beginning too obvious that for her to be making that mistake the entire film. I'm like, if you showed me her as a girl, like you said, she's an immortal goddess, so she grew up from then with that lesson in mind. How did it take her this? Because and the answer is because the movie needed to happen. Yep. But then if that's your answer, then maybe the writing wasn't the best writing. And I'll bring it up now. The first movie, directed by Patty Jenkins, was written by Zack Snyder and co-writers, other people. And I don't know, this one written by her. So maybe, and also as far as connecting to other stuff, this doesn't connect to the greater DC universe in any way other than maybe with Linda Carter showing up, they're teasing some sort of Flashpoint alternate universe type thing. But the overall story of this entire thing has no effect on anything at all.
Standalone movie. Yep.
It's filler.
Yep, it's standalone.
And if you're going to do a movie that's filler as far as your expanded universe goes, then you got to do justice by your main character. It's got to blow people away. I think this one didn't blow people away, and I think that's got people upset. And also, we haven't been able to go see movies. Movies haven't been coming out. So there's a lack of movies, and this is what you get after waiting that long. It's like, and so you blame. I'm interested to see the Black Widow movie because that's going to be an interesting comparison to this one.
I gotta see that because anyone who knows me, Gal Gadot, Scarlett Johansson, Dave knows me. Those are the two ladies I love the most. But the thing that gets me with Patty Jenkins, it might have been a pandemic that caused her to write the movie this way, more of a whoosh feel good story movie than Zack Snyder intended it to be, perhaps.
You can't say that because she wrote it and shot it way before the pandemic happened.
That's true.
And if you were then going to do, and they did the reshoots, I mean, even before the length of time it takes for this stuff to come out. So now
the final edit, like you said, the final edit could have been affected though.
Yes. And that's the thing I've been seeing from, because I watch other reviewers, like The Critical Drinker I'm a fan of his YouTube show. He does a great job because he's very aware of like writing tropes. He's a writer. He knows like how these things work. And so it's, it's very obvious when things happen. But at the same time, he said this way before it even got delayed. He was like, they're doing reshoots. Things aren't looking great for this. He did another video update when it was delayed again. The longer they delay these movies, the more money they're losing. And then so you see like part of this is a strategy for, I think that is a big part of it. The nature of the way that this movie's coming out. Like, I think, would you guys agree that like that probably affected the way that they edited the final product?
It could have. I don't know for sure, but it could have definitely happened. They were lucky they had a Christmas scene in there.
Yep.
That sort of worked out.
I agree with that.
That kind of made it more timely for the.
And it also brought your guy back who died at first for Steve Trevor. You saw him come back to life, so it brought him back. You got a chance to see that. I thought it was kind of interesting though that she had no interest for him in that form whatsoever.
Yeah,
no interest whatsoever.
She said, she was like, let me see.
No.
I don't even see that. So you're saying love has blinded you?
Probably.
Dialogue.
Because the thing that gets me is the fact that the only love of her life that you have ever seen on the big screen has been Steve Trevor.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that Steve Trevor doesn't play an important part to it, but if you go through the comics and the rest of the story, it's more than just Steve down the line.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And hopefully there will be in live action.
And that's what he says to her in the movie. Even he's like, stop. There's other guys out there. Like there's a whole big wide world. And you are the hotness. So it's not fair.
Yes, it's not fair.
He didn't say that.
He didn't say that part, but
we all were thinking it.
We all were thinking it.
You are the hotness.
Yes.
Again. So that's an interesting thing about this movie. And Steven, when you were saying that they should have done a 1950s version first, no one's ever I've never heard anyone say that or bring up that point that they should have gotten her. And that's really cool. And also it would have made more sense for Steven. And then by now she could have moved on. So he could have been there. And also the stuff, because the Man Out of Time thing, they try to play that trope with him, like obviously because he's from then, but he shows up having found her so he can navigate around this world. And then after that, they do like I don't get stuff, but it's like you already used a phone book to find whatever. so it didn't work perfectly, and also he was able to fly a modern jet just
Like
because
it was
he's like,
nothing.
well, I'm a
Like it was
pilot.
nothing.
I was like, that is totally different. He was in World War I. Those were the first planes anyone ever made. These are
Go back to go
jet
and
planes.
and also go back
Believe it
and
or
also
not,
go.
I was able to suspend belief on that a little bit. I was just like,
I
maybe
mean,
this
I
guy,
threw it
maybe
out
this-
the window as through as I thought of it, but I was like, you got to
Yeah.
be kidding me.
I thought maybe he's just such a badass pilot that he was able to get caught up really quickly, and I'll just suspend belief on it. Yeah, I know theoretically it'd be not doable,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
because I
And
had thought,
it takes him a second, but he's like, oh, there's this shit, and he starts flipping switches. Okay, I got this. But he
that
does
also,
later he talks about how flying, he explains to her how to fly. That's an interesting, like, actual plot point that does happen through this movie. It's not just an entire jumbled mess. There is a story in there.
There's a direction.
You know? Yep. And it's clouded by all this other stuff that I feel like they left in that, but maybe could have been cut, maybe could have been tightened up, maybe a bunch of stuff. I don't know. But like, that is one of the big plot points is Steve is a pilot. He knows how to fly. So it's instinctual that, yes. And so, like you said, that's how he flies the plane. He has that, and he talks about the wind, and you just got to catch it and know it. And it's instinct.
But also go back during that same period, you get to see the invisible jet.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that also is a problem, though. The invisible jet part of it. What was the point of doing that other than being able to say, we put the invisible jet in this movie?
Well, it's definitely fan service. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
It's definitely
And B, she can turn things invisible.
She did it before with I think it was a cup of water or something like that beforehand.
Have her fly the invisible jet at the end instead of flying like she was doing.
And
that would have been so cool.
That would have felt really cool because it would have been kind of like a tribute to her boyfriend who now is gone again. I'm going to take your invisible jet to take care of this once and for all.
That's the obvious solution, is that because that solves the thing of, can she fly or can she not fly? Because we've seen it and blah, 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 and now she's boom, that's out of the picture. She has her invisible jet. Bam, answered in this movie. Like, this. So in that respect, again, that's another way that, like, you just said it. How hard is that to, like, make this movie make sense also in the wider view of things?
It would also would have gave us the Wonder Woman we all grew up with throughout the Super Friends era. So yeah, that's a good point too.
And the things like the invisible jet, like, if you're going to go so far as to put it in there, embrace it. Yeah. This is where these things came from. If you're going to put it in there, like, really get on board. Don't just do it as like it's like in Rogue One. I was just talking about this, I think, with all of you at some point. But when they have the two guys that are just randomly on a planet that you see in A New Hope, they get in the bar fight with Luke. But you randomly see them in Rogue One on a different planet that gets blown up by the Death Star a second later, and it's like, I guess they were just on their way out. It's like, why did you do that?
Right.
Why did you throw that in there? It's like you knew that we would recognize them, so you just wanted to be able to say, like, look, they're in there.
Yeah.
Right.
But it does nothing to your actual movie. Like, you don't actually
didn't enhance it at all.
Yeah, it's pointless other than just be able to say, like, ooh, look, and like that's. Right. You shouldn't be doing that. And again, The Mandalorian, we could talk about how that was one of the great things of 2020. That has a lot of that kind of thing, but it usually is important to the story or makes sense in the story, or it's not just like they're on a different planet than they even should be, just so you can get like a wink and a nod in your movie. And so if you're going to do that kind of thing, and Wonder Woman, I think, was all over the place on that.
Well, and Dave Filoni's probably a big reason why that is the case on Mandalorian, because he's a Star Wars encyclopedia, a walking Star Wars encyclopedia. And what DC and Warner Brothers needs is they need the DC version of that person.
Well, like a Kevin Feige too for Marvel.
A Kevin Feige for DC.
Yes, they need to find that person, whoever that is.
And
maybe it's one of you guys.
I'll take it. I'll take that job any day.
I will not.
I'll take it any day.
A lot of weight on the shoulders, I'll admit.
You can have it. Oh man, but that is the kind of thing that, Star Wars, like you said, The Mandalorian did well with that because of that. Marvel did well because they had someone who was, hey, this is how these movies have to connect. If we're doing an expanded universe and we're going to try and ask people to go to every single movie that we put out to make all these things connect, if we're going to attempt that, we need to actually make them connect. We need to actually, or if they're not going to connect other than in an after the credit scene, then we need to make them good enough on their own for people to go see them. And again, that was the idea when movie theaters were open and you could get people to go to see movies. So the Wonder Woman situation, again, is so different and hopefully temporary, because we know that they're doing their entire slate of movies this year in theater and for 30 days on HBO Max, which is a way to try and get people to start their subscription service and then hopefully forget that they have it so that they keep getting charged every month. And that's how you make money off of that, because obviously you make more money. Well, it's also the breakdown of who makes money when you go to a movie theater. How much of that ticket price goes straight to the, so there's a breakdown. Are they making more money really off of these like subscriptions than, and that is going to be that's like the contest between Netflix, Amazon, and
I think one thing that might be HBO Max's saving grace is the fact other shows is moving over to HBO Max, particularly from DC Universe. Stargirl's moving over there, Doom Patrol's moving over there, Titans moving over there. So they're gonna be drawing interest on HBO Max from everyone who loves that show, and that might keep HBO Max relevant.
Well, they're hoping for that, because it wasn't enough to keep the DC Universe. Well, not even that it wasn't enough to keep it alive. It's just like these streaming services have been eating each other. Like if you even look at Disney, it's like Disney plus ESPN plus Hulu. Netflix has gobbled some things up. Amazon has gobbled some people up. Yahoo streaming service was there for like a year before that got gobbled up. And the only reason that anyone even knows about that, the only reason I know that Yahoo even had a streaming service, it sounds unbelievable, but that's where the last season of Community aired. So I watched it because for that, 6 seasons in a movie, still waiting on that movie. So a Wonder Woman, in a way, it's definitely generating buzz. People are talking about it. We're talking about it. Like, no matter what, people are talking about it. And you know why? It's because, like, we haven't gotten anything. The only other thing to talk about was The Mandalorian, because everything else been pushed back. There's nothing else to talk about.
Wonder Woman is probably also affected a little bit by coming out right after Mandalorian season finale. I mean, how do you follow that? Unless you're Infinity War or Endgame.
And that was
like that caliber.
Exactly. And that was to cap off a season that was impressive in its own right, you know? Like we had, that was, and again, what a lot of people were saying, like out of 2020, at least we got The Mandalorian, you know? At least we got Boba Fett. We got
another thing too that I thought was kind of interesting. First part that the movie got a little political with not Donald Trump, but a Donald Trump light, if you want to call him that. And the second part that interested me, season 3 got announced so fast it would have made your head spin.
The episode,
because you remember season 3, not season 3. The third movie was already announced,
right?
Yeah, so,
yeah, Wonder Woman. They have announced,
and that got announced so quick. It wasn't even funny. It wasn't even a week. It wasn't even 3 days.
See, that makes me think for this movie, it was a filler movie, like we said. It, you know, but they've got that tie-in at the end, Linda Carter. And so then they're building up to this Flash movie. With the Flash movie, they're going to create their multiverse, and then they've started taking their time, is what I'm saying. Like they're actually starting to plan things out. And while this is kind of like a stumble start, if you will, just because of the way that ended up coming out and with COVID and things you can't predict, everything, there's so much crazy stuff, but they released an imperfect product, but it's like, this isn't even what we're
shooting for.
Yeah. Like this is just something we had, and we have to, you know, the future is Robert Pattinson Batman, Snyder Cut, Flashpoint, all kinds of stuff. They don't even, and they're like,
You said that before, Chris, that we could get a Flashpoint Paradox movie, and if that happens, oh man, that's gonna be awesome.
Well, how else do you explain Linda Carter?
You can't.
Why would there be?
I want if that happens, man,
and also, I'll say this: I don't know if anyone else. I think someone else, even on Twitter, might have said I was wrong and I heard it wrong. But when they walk in at the end. Like one of the climactic points when Pedro Pascal and Cheetah are walking in to take over like the satellites and everything.
Yep.
The army guy that they talk to, he's like, Dr. Zoom, is everything ready? And I'm like, did he say Dr. Zoom? Are you kidding me? Is this Eobard Thawne right here? And that's the only reference that they're gonna give us. But I was like, Flashpoint. That's why, like, when I was watching the movie, I was like, maybe this movie's great because look, they just referenced Flashpoint. And then someone else was like, you heard that wrong. And also, I don't think so. And I was like, well, maybe.
You could like only hope, right?
I want Eobard Thawne and Flashpoint to happen so bad. What did that movie, like the Flashpoint animated movie that came out in like 2007?
I think it was like 2007.
It was like 2011.
It
was like 10 years ago, and they just used Flashpoint again, actually, to end one of their other. There's a whole awesome, amazing. Like, if you love the MCU, the DC animated universe is doing. They did the past 10 years like the MCU did on big screen, but they did animated. Yeah. It's if you're like wondering to yourself, why can't I get better content out of DC? It's like, well, all you have to do is go over to their animated universe and you'll have some sick, nasty, awesome stuff that blew my mind. And each one, if it focuses on what it's focusing on, it's tight, it's awesome.
I think the only bad one was the Killing Joke one. I think that was the only bad one.
That was one of the worst.
Yeah.
And if that's what you say, if that's like the worst one out of, wow.
You're still doing good.
Holy crap.
You're still doing good because everything before and after that is amazing.
And I wanted some of that type of Wonder Woman in this, you know what I mean? Sword stabbing Darkseid in the eye. And they went out of their way to say, like, this movie became like partially, like you said, William, it became partially a political statement when Patty Jenkins said, well, yes, the main character is partially based off Donald Trump. You just turned off audience members right there. You just did it. Don't say it. Don't talk about it. Don't ever bring it up. Let the movie speak for itself, because some people that wouldn't have ever noticed that won't see this movie because she at one point said that. And that's all it takes for some people. So as a business strategy, it's about, even if it's true, I don't care. That's fine. It can be as true as what
let people figure that out.
Yeah. Or not on their own.
Or not. Yeah.
By themselves.
Let the movie speak for itself. So, here we are breaking it down.
The idea of a person being able to take a story and kind of mold it to their life to a certain degree, make their interpretations. When you read a book, a person can get something different from one book than another person can.
Yep. Yep. He got it. He got it.
And we all kind of have different opinions on this very movie. I wanted to, again, that's one of the reasons I actually joined Geek News now. It's part of my passion because I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I've seen how tumultuous that has been. Okay. And Wonder Woman 1984 is The Last Jedi. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't understand why people are upset about The Last Jedi, that has to do with years of like comic, like history of like stuff that's in comics and books and all kinds of stuff and Star Wars itself. And then we went to see that movie and it was a Luke Skywalker that clearly someone didn't understand. My opinion, a lot of people's opinion, but it split the fan base. This Wonder Woman, it's not like they did a disservice to Wonder Woman. They did not assassinate the character of Wonder Woman in this movie. She's fine. The movie itself just has some structural problems, really, is the biggest. Like, there's some story and structural stuff, but there are a lot of great moments within that. If you can last the 2.5 hours, there is some good, but there's some bad stuff too. Cheetah,
I didn't like her CGI.
We haven't
I'll say
talked
that.
about
I
her
didn't like
at
that.
all. So
I
far,
didn't
we're
like that at all.
50 minutes in. We haven't talked about her one time. Why was that? So, Cheetah. I like Kristen Wiig.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
But the CGI was so
It was
bad.
terrible. It was terrible.
That last fight, and it was dark. Like, and I can get. Here's the thing. I get that sometimes things happen in the dark, and like you need to be able to show that on film. The entire Battle of Helm's Deep takes place at night in the rain, but we can see everything that happens.
Right.
That's how you shoot something well in the dark. Okay, so recently, I don't know why, but filmmakers have been having a lot of trouble. We saw it with Game of Thrones, literally the dark, like that episode of the Darkest Night or whatever. It was too dark. It was too dark. That's plain. We see it in this type of thing. We saw it in Solo.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're doing it just to like not have to show that they weren't set up for reshoots or what the deal is, but it's noticeable. And I just, it's kind of unacceptable for this level of film. That whole fight, would you agree or disagree? Like, what do you guys think of the cheetah fight scene at the end? Because there were like 2 at least, but the cheetah fight scene at the end, the CGI. Steven, why don't you take it away? You start.
Well, I mean, I've had, and it was one of the things that occurred to me was, and I've had a lot of people mention this, that it was very cats-ish, which is not a positive comment.
No. Oh God.
That, by the way, speaking of bad CGI, there was some suspect CGI in Cats. So for it to remind people of Cats is a bad message. It's something that needed to be worked. I had people even comment saying they would have rather just seen her stay throughout as she was after she had her first transformation. And then maybe have gained a few little more buttons and whistles in terms of like maybe she gets the nails and has a little bit of something in her hands, but that's it.
As opposed to this clearly bad CGI. Not even, why did they again, what was up with the grayscale? Like, or why wasn't she like the color of a cheetah?
Right.
Or like Cheetah from the comics. Like, that was one of the things people are enjoying about Wonder Woman, is that she looks like the Wonder Woman from the comics. She kind of acts like the Wonder. She's brusque and like doesn't kind of get modern. And she's like, well, this is the truth, so let's just do that. And she's, so why with Cheetah was this such a? And then at the end, she's not even Cheetah anymore, right? Like, it's over.
Right, she renounced her wrist. She renounced
her wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And Cheetah is not just a one-time villain of Wonder Woman. She's a big time. So that whole thing, I was like,
yeah,
are you serious with that? And
that's
they meant,
she's over, she's done.
That's it for Cheetah. That was the arc of Cheetah in this Wonder Woman's life. I don't like that.
I want to say I agree with Steven again, because the thing with me, if you would have kept her human, maybe give us a few bells and whistles, you could have got the CGI right in 3.
Later.
She could have got that right.
Expanded on it.
Right, expanded on it in 3. Keep her as she was. Few bells and whistles, what, maybe like fingernails for claws or whatnot. Let them go at it
and see her hands, like,
but
the rest of her looks like as she is now. Maybe her eyes change colors, but that's
I agree.
And that could have been a major plot. She's like the one person that never renounced her wish out of like all, and then like that, and then she becomes like, and she still. Again, she wanted Wonder Woman's everything, so immortality was part of it. And then you still have that character that you can use again later. And then this, again, filler story isn't just that. It has an effect later. She can be in Suicide Squad 2 or whatever. Like, you can actually use this character again in later things. You can introduce them in one movie and use them. That's the beauty of having these expanded universes.
Now they had...
And this one, they cut out basically everyone except Wonder Woman.
It could still be retcon though, because in the comic books, didn't they not have more than one Cheetah?
Yeah,
over the history of the comics.
Yeah. Over her history, yeah, it's been more than one.
Yeah, and so they could introduce a different Cheetah later, maybe, and it would be fine if they wanted to fix that.
Yeah, they could, and also, but the more obvious and I think likely, fix that I see coming again is Flashpoint.
Yeah,
is the Flash is explaining again. How else do you explain a different Wonder Woman, a different Linda Carter. You know, that's alternate timeline. That's
Yeah.
alternate Earth.
You just want to see evil Batman. That's all you want to see.
What I want to see, okay.
Batman with the guns.
I want to see Batman drunk with the guns. Okay, I do. I want his wife to be the Joker. I want him to be pissed off at Barry Allen and smack him around. I want him to pistol whip Barry Allen and be like, "Get the hell out of my house." I want it to be Thomas Wayne. I want it to be played by the guy from Walking Dead.
Which one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know you're talking about.
The guy who also played his father in Batman vs Superman, or yeah, why can't I remember his name? I love him. He's so great. He played Negan.
Yeah, interesting. That would be interesting.
He's a brain fart on his name right now.
That would be interesting.
I would love to see him as a Batman drunk alternate universe, pissed off because his son got murdered in an alley, and
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
I would love to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan in a Flashpoint movie playing alternate universe Thomas Wayne, aka Batman. Even if it's for like a minute, that would be one thing where I'd be like, they did it. Yes.
Hey, Chris, I don't want to let you know my daughter's watching, and even she's agreeing with you. She came back here and said yes. She said yes.
That is awesome. See, appealing to audiences of all ages. That's what I'm talking about.
There you go.
That's right there. I like to give Yoda a nice, yeah.
Yes.
The little, the kind of caress.
Caress Yoda. Yes.
So we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. Wonder Woman, it was kind of bloated. There are good things in the movie. There are things they could have cut out. One of the last thing, well, another thing, we got a little bit of time left here. The dressing scene, dressing up Steve in different outfits. Now, first of all, call back to the first Wonder Woman when she has to get dressed up in, petticoats and stuff. She's like, how am I supposed to do in this? And that is why that scene worked in that one. And in this movie, it's just kind of a gag.
Yeah.
Because it's just to show wasn't 80s fashion ridiculous?
It was.
Remember that? But it had nothing to do with actually him being able to fight or anything other than it just being different for him. It's just kind of played off as a gag like that. Whereas in the first one, that was a necessary. So again, that was something that I thought you could have cut that. You could have cut the flying scene. It was too long. It was too long for what the actual story was being told. That's my, I guess, final thought on that movie. Steven, final thoughts, I guess. Anything else, any topics you want to bring up before we go? Anything you want to specifically mention?
I'm just waiting for the Snyder cut of this film. I can't wait till we can get that.
The Snyder cut of Wonder Woman 1980.
He said the Snyder cut. No, he didn't.
Well, what I would like to see is a cut that redoes the Cheetah.
Yeah.
An HBO Max cut later that they go back and redo the CGI on Cheetah. It would be great. And then cut some of the flying. And that would be, we can get a polished cut, a Patty Jenkins polished cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say this movie could, without losing anything, be 2 hours. And you could still have the same exact movie you have now.
I do want to say this because I think if you criticize, it's important to compliment where there is areas for there to compliment. We mentioned you all mentioned this earlier. Gal Gadot visually is perfect Wonder Woman, and not since Linda Carter. It took between Linda Carter and Gal Gadot to get to such a visually perfect Wonder Woman, but they have the perfect Wonder Woman in Gal Gadot, and Henry Cavill in appearance is the perfect Superman. If you base it off the traditional Superman from the comic books. Batman's a little more debatable, but yeah, they've got the Wonder Woman there. I love the costuming. I loved her calves.
Oh my gosh, that one scene in the mall with her boob.
Yep.
Oh gosh, that scene there, and they set that up to display
Done.
her athleticism at its best. And I still like her and Chris Pine's chemistry. They have great chemistry. I know why they were so drawn to try to figure out a way to bring him back, because his ability to kind of let her be the alpha, but not himself look too like weak and nimble at the same time.
Yeah.
Although I think he was a little bit too much comic relief in this one. I liked him more in the first one, but I still like their chemistry overall. It was better in the first one though, but I still liked it.
Yeah. Well, he had his own agency and his own goals. And this one, he was just like, I'll help you, when really all you need to do is wish that I wasn't here again. And then you could literally have all your superpowers and do everything you need to do.
Yep.
Up front.
Yep.
But anyway, was that it?
But the actors work off each other really well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, again, none of the actual real critiques of this movie that I've seen, and not just the people going, man, it's terrible, brr. The actual things, no one has really been criticizing the cast. They did exactly what they were there to do. They did, and they did a good job. I enjoyed all of them. Pedro Pascal was great. It was great to see him
always
getting to do so many emotions after
Yes.
he's been a helmet and then a non-expressive face other than a tear in the Mandalorian. And that's really, he's done. This was a great opportunity for him to actually be like, it could be better. Hey, look at me. I'm the guy. And then freaking out.
Make your wish. Make your wish.
Really gets to put that on display. He's more than just a bounty hunter.
He's going to be a lot more than a bounty hunter. I think he's the now and the future of Hollywood. I think the next 10 years he's going to be doing some bigger thing. I mean, he's going to be doing other big things.
I agree.
Yep.
I definitely see that in his future. He's got a lot of
talent.
potential.
Yeah.
Yep.
William, final thoughts on the movie?
I thought the movie, I think someone did ask me to give it a number. Between 1 and 10, I gave it a 7.5. There's some plot holes in the story, but overall, I think the acting was fantastic. You saw some range from Gal, which Steve was about to die. So I would give it 7.5 out of 10. And I want to see what they do with 3 from here. Because now you got me thinking, Chris, there's a whole lot that they can do from that ending to 3. There's a lot they could do.
Yeah.
That is wonderfully said. I appreciate both you guys' points of view. That's why I wanted to have you on. I wanted to have a little bit of what do you think and why, and bring that together. Again, Geek News Now, we have seen in the past several years in geekness giant rifts, giant trials and tribulations between, and not just in Star Wars. I'm talking about like Star Trek, Doctor Who, all over the place. Spider-Man, like decisions are being made, things are happening, and people are either happy, not happy, and the reasons why are very different. But one thing that seems to be very common is that when the people that have possibly made these mistakes, or even not made the mistakes, but when they go to the source material and work it from the heart, you see a positive reaction from the fans. And I do believe that Wonder Woman 1984 had that intention, and that due to a number of circumstances, including COVID, including everything that happened with Snyder and DC getting bought out, and tons of different things, people got involved, it got cut up, it kind of became different than what it was probably originally envisioned to be. I have no doubt about that. And so I think in that respect, but there's at its core a lot of stuff to appreciate about Wonder Woman, about the people that played the characters, about what they were trying to go for in this movie. Again, and I think you both said it, we would like to see a better cut of this movie. I think that is it. They cut this movie badly. You could make what they had here into a better movie.
And in the world of streaming, you may get that one of these days. It may happen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's an ever-changing, awesome world out there. And unless you guys have anything else you want to
We got one down. Marvel, do us right. Black Widow,
The Black
Bring
Widow
it.
movie.
Bring it. Bring it. Stop messing with my emotions. Bring it.
That's going to be a very interesting comparison. I can tell you right now.
Yeah, it will be.
That one also, like I've been saying at least that Wonder Woman was a filler movie. Black Widow is a filler movie. If they wanted to do that movie right, they would have had it come out before she died in Endgame.
Yep.
Because now, no matter what happens, everyone, like, people already aren't going to see it because they're like, she's dead. Who cares? Like, like that's, it's a thing. If you got people invested in this universe, the only way they can change that is by like pulling some comic book soap opera stuff, which is.
But at the end of the day, and I was about to say, it's comic books. So in
it's
comic
true.
books, is anyone truly ever dead?
That's also true.
Yeah. We just got Boba Fett back too.
Yep. Saw that.
All right. That's, I guess, it for us.
Happy New Year, guys.
Wonder Woman, everyone. 84. Happy New Year. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know why you watched this entire thing, but go check out Wonder Woman 1984. I would say it's worth watching. Okay. Even if there's parts that are too long, I would say, like, yeah, it's worth watching more than, like, I liked it more than Captain Marvel. Yeah. If you had to compare it to a,
oh yes,
but it's not as world crucial as like Batman versus,
but it's not better than Ant-Man, in my opinion. I would still put Ant-Man ahead of it.
Ant-Man was tighter. Again, that's the bigger problem with this movie was, like, they should have tightened it up, and then it would be comparable or better than actually, I would say, like, several or more, like, it would be better than Ant-Man if they, but anyway, that's it for 2020, actually. So say goodbye now, even though, depending on your time zone, eventually it's going to be a little bit later.
Bye,
2020.
Goodbye. Get out. Get out of here, 2020.
Way out of here.
Get out of here. Go, 2020.